Section 14(2) of the Children's Act.
What does that say?
And so I'll just want to read that portion. And it addresses the specific issue.
Right.
The right to refuse betrothal and marriage.
Okay. So tell us what it says.
Quote, a person shall not force a child, A, to be betrothed, betrothed, B, to be the subject of a dowry transaction, or C, to be married. The minimum age of marriage, whatever kind, is 18 years. Then it proceeds. 15. A person who contravenes the provisions of sections 12 to 14 commits an offense. Upon summary conviction, to a fine not exceeding 250 penalty units, or imprisonment not exceeding 1 year, or to both the fine and imprisonment. So I strongly believe that if my learned senior had adverted his mind to this express...
Let me ask a layman's question. Okay. So what you read about betrothal, it speaks about a minor being forced. Must you therefore not establish the fact that she was forced?
No. Here, the essential ingredient of the offense here is the fact that...
Age.
Okay, so the general provision is that a person below the age 18 at common law could not engage in any transaction.
Yes.
There are only exceptions. That is, if the person is engaged in what we call contract of necessaries. Obviously, a marriage cannot be considered to be a contract of necessaries. Now, we have moved beyond the common law to a point where we have made it a statutory provision that under no circumstance whatsoever should A, B, C, D happen. And you say, Randy, proud to the enactment.
I wanted a point established.
Yes, so
this is the basis for my question.
Yes.
You see that under rape and defilement.
Perfect.
Okay. Consent does not matter to the extent that the age limit is not up to a certain point.
Perfect.
So that's what I wanted to...
Yeah, so that's why I was developing the point. That this whole position is from the common law view.
Right.
That if you are below 18, you're unable to contract. You're unable to contract because the understanding is that you do not have the mental capacity either to appreciate consequences or make an informed decision. And so at the age of minority, you are not permitted to do anything. But even at common law, the understanding is that if it's a contract for necessaries, then a person who is of the minority age can contract. But you must establish that first, this is a contract for necessaries. But then we have moved beyond that. So if you look carefully under the law, as part of the major reform in 1990s, resulted, among other things, in the passage of the Children's Act. So, and I want to say this, that's one of the things Mrs. Kunedu Ajman Rawlings actually pushed. One of them was the PNDC Law 111, and then subsequently the issue of children. The other matter had to do with what people call the female genital mutilation, and what used to practice within the Ewe community, trococy, then widowhood rights, the issue of witches and camps, among other things. So there had been a certain overwhelming, conversation to criminalize all these offenses because they actually do violate the rights of the persons or the victims involved. And so, if you look at the law, and I, again, like I said respectfully, I strongly believe that if my learned senior, the distinguished Ayuko to Honorable, had adverted his mind to this clear statutory provision, The admission in his letter that if it was a betrothal, then you can proceed with it. With the greatest respect to him, that does not even help the matter. Because clearly, and this is what they say in their letter, Honorable Ayiko to sign. He said the council, proving further had revealed that instead of a traditional betrothal that the MC who are known during such occasion to exaggerate issues to create laughter and others, they claim that it is not a traditional wedding. If there is this admission that, we concede that whilst betrothal could involve underage person, it does not grant license to the person to start having sexual relations with such a child, hereby jeopardizing her education, even endangering a difficult childbirth, since her organs are not properly developed, among other issues, right? So, if you want to do a betrothal here, and the person is, say, beyond 18 years, that's within whatever you want to do. If you are a man, your daughter is above 18, and you say it is
but the 18 then defeats the whole concept of betrothal, because the betrothal is a
giveaway kind of.
It's something that is done when the person is not.
No, but even here, assuming that at 18, that's what you intended to do, that person is no longer a child. So the provisions of the Children's Act will not apply. At that point, the person is of the age of majority and therefore can decide that, notwithstanding my father or mother's decision to, as it were, give me out to marry to so and so, I do not want to. You can make that informed decision. But for the purposes of this discussion, the 12-year-old, it's just not possible that she can make that, informed decision at this critical point. I would urge the traditional authorities. Incidentally, Gborbu Wulormo is a personal friend. I kind of deal with him on some land issues.
Yes, for the regional chairman.
Yes, for the greater.
In fact, when I started, when I got into football administration with Hearts of Oak, they were our bosses. So he was the team manager for a long time, part of the management team. So he's somebody
an influential character.
Oh, he's somebody.
No, I mean he's a man of extreme influence.
So he was like assistant to Nigbesi today, who then was Tommy Okain. Nigbesi currently.
Tommy Okain.
Yes. So the Gbese match today.
Among other things, I think that we may be looking at a possible cease and desist, where in the circumstance, this 12-year-old would be taken completely away. I don't know.
So there are two messages. Let me read it. It appears that, look, we need to, you see, they say that in the where we call the developed world, and it's something I've said all the time, that law is enforcement. In Ghana, law is enactment. And that's what makes the difference. Now, there are two messages that suggest that, well, probably, this case is what has brought out this issue of betrothal and the fact that it's even the Children's Act and all that. But it appears that the enactment of this law has not stopped a practice which is widespread. So I'll read two messages here. So this one is from Gborbu Wulormo, who is in the States, but he's from Elmina. And he says, in Elmina, my hometown, when a new chief is outdoored, a lady from a royal family is selected to sit in the palanquin with him during the installation ceremony. According to tradition, any child born to the chief and this lady, known as Ahinimba, will be the next chief. The tradition is rooted in a belief that Ahinimba is the chief's spiritual wife, and the offspring is destined to inherit the throne. This practice reinforces the royal family's lineage and ensures the continuation of the chiefly dynasty. This lady is normally a kid. I think we need to do something about these kinds of betrothal, which are all over the place in Ghana. Then I have this from the Honorable Neil Van der Poel, who is MP Ododo. Now, he also says this. He says, these practices have been with us for ages and are still valuable and relevant. There are many young boys who are also betrothed to our shrines. Their liberties, freedoms, and rights are not curtailed. They continue with their education and life. They are only set apart from abuse or to be touched until they reach adulthood. They are tutored deeply in our culture and traditions and only assume responsibilities of their call at adulthood. And there's that in the Bible, Samuel at a much younger age was given up to serve the Lord. He did that all his young age until he was an adult. This practice transcends the Gadangbe area. It is only because of the publicity this has been given. And talking about the biblical example, one of our viewers, Frank Latte, has also sent me something that dates from 1747, Negro land, that's West Africa. And it talks about remnants of the tribe of Judah who were forced into exile. And then it also speaks about Mary, the mother of Jesus, and betrothal and all that. So, so the point I'm making is that that's why I said that maybe this was an Accra event, maybe the publicity. But it appears from all accounts that this issue of betrothal is something which has been happening for centuries, for decades, and is happening even today, irrespective of the fact that there is a law that, from what you have read, speaks against it.
In fact, there is a much recent decision of the High Court that His Lordship Justice Akabuafo J.A., a Justice of the Court of Appeal, gave was at the High Court. And this had to do with gun custom. And it has to do with ascension to a particular stool. And one of the families contended that the person who had been nominated is left-handed.
Yes.
And for that matter, cannot ascend the stool. And that matter was brought before the judge. And so he had to navigate strictly the various cultural practices and norms and arrive at a conclusion. And my Lord Justice Akabuafo then indicated that, listen, if this thing had happened any time before the 1992 Constitution, possibly would have been permissible.
Okay.
But post the 1992 Constitution, their strict legal regime and a careful reading of Article 11 of the Constitution clearly puts the 1992 Constitution higher in terms of hierarchy over all other laws, and that in the circumstance, to the extent that the Constitution itself does not forbid a person who is left-handed from enjoying the full rights as a Ghanaian, to say that there is a particular custom, and again, it was within the Ghana context, that forbids a person who is left-handed from becoming a chief. To that extent, it is unconstitutional. And any such cultural practice should not be permissible. I strongly recall in those days when the vast issue about truckery came up, it generated its own emotional and what have you responses. The people who said it was a cultural practice, among other things. Overall, once the Children Act come in, it forbids that from happening. And it doesn't matter who you are, just don't do it. And I strongly believe that the person of Gborbu Wulormo that I personally know and have interacted and kind of worked for, I do not believe that is a person who ordinarily would want to engage in such an act. And so I would, under the circumstance, I do not know whether I am qualified so to do, but respectfully advise.
Your senior Kakra Samuel says I should remind you that he's left-handed.
So Abura, he should just know that Abura is forbidden from, going close to.
I thought you said by the judgment the 92 Constitution.
No, but the law will strictly apply. In fact, this is what we call ad hominem, where you look at the person and then you direct the judgment to him. So maybe this one will go to. But on a more serious note, I would, with respect, urge the respected Steve Akwete, that's what I know him to be, Gborbu Wulormo, to basically disengage. You see, he's carved a certain niche for himself, a very respectable one, of course, within the Ga chieftaincy institution. And so, I strongly believe that the question of reform should be coming from him relative to this cultural practice. Randy, in the past, it was easier for you what they call pioneering. If you commit an offense, right, and you have kids or children, you give the children out, possibly in settlement of your judgment debt or something. All those cultural practices have today been outmoded. And looking at the pedigree, the stature of Gborbu Wulormo, I strongly believe that he should lead a reform as to getting this. I'm happy that this thing has generated the needed publicity so that going forward, we can all come to a common ground. Our law do not allow this. So we can shape this culture properly that it does not happen. Where I sit, if you make any attempt that any of my 3 daughters age 12 should be given out to such a thing, there will be bloodbath. Right? There will be bloodbath. And I strongly believe that this is not what we need today. I've seen communications to the effect that the Gborbu Wulormo should be arrested, among other things. I think we should exercise restraint. The issue of arrest comes in when the person is belligerent, has recklessly decided to indulge in such an issue. It may be well be that the level of information available to him may be limited. It provides a platform for all of us to be educated as to the limit to which some of us can, what we can indulge in and what we cannot under the circumstance.